Hey guys, Frank here with another episode of Modern Church Leader, talking with a new good friend all the way from Jersey. Actually, my part of my family is like hometown, but Ben, you're still out there. So Ben Stapley, welcome to the show.
You're still out there. It makes it sound like I'm surviving some type
You've
of
made it.
contest.
You've made it.
You, I already got the vibes of West Coast versus East Coast right now from you, Frank, and I love it. I love it.
I mean, Tupac and Biggie, it's still a thing. It's still a thing. Too good. Well, you've been out there, you've bounced around a little bit, but you've been out in Jersey for a long time, and you're in a new role over the last 2 years. So why don't you give folks just, give us the short version of your journey into the church world and your role today.
Yeah, I started working in television as a producer and reporter in Toronto, Ontario. Then I pivoted from that, got married to a gal in Jersey. She dragged me down to the States, and I've been in church work for about the past 18 years. For the first about 15 years of that, it's on the creative side of things, the experience side of things, and then God's called me towards the XP side of things over the past 3 to 5 years. So I've moved and migrated towards that, and that's a quick snapshot of my experience. And what I really like in terms of our conversation today, as we are talking about internships, is I've just seen the benefit of that in each of those different career stops for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so for anyone listening, it's kind of like, hey, I'm not an XP or I'm not this or that. I know this conversation is going to impact people because I've seen internships revolutionize career organizations and every one of those pit stops along my career.
How did you make the jump from journalism into church?
I made it because journalism was dying. We talked off mic a little bit about this, but this is going to age myself. I was going into journalism, and I wanted to do hard journalism. I wanted to tell stories, which is kind of what we do in the church will know. Stories of Christ's redemption, what came to earth, how he wants to redeem all humanity. I wanted to tell
Mm-hmm.
stories, but at the time, Craigslist was coming on the scene, and we were losing all of our revenue from the classifieds. And so I was told, unless you want to do TMZ, and you want to do that type of news, if you can call it news,
Yeah.
get out of this career. And so I knew for myself, I needed to find another place where I could tell stories, and the church was a great place for me to do that. For me, it's the premier place to tell the premier stories. So that's what I've been doing. That's how I made that quick pivot early on in my career.
Right, right. And did you go in, like you went into the creative side of the church world, right? How do the dots connect, journalism and church creative? Like, what was your first job out of church?
First job, I was a programming director slash junior high youth pastor. They brought me on, and they said we want to bring you on full time to oversee our service experience, but we need to fill the seat on the bus, and it's a junior high youth pastor. And I had a number of friends who got into ministry, and they said, don't take it, because that 6 months is going to turn into 6 years, and you're not wired as a youth pastor. You're going to kill a kid, or a kid's going to kill you, one of the
Yeah,
two.
right,
Someone's going to
right.
die, and you can. And so I was like, put that in writing.
But you did it.
And yeah, yes, but I was like, come 6 months and one day, I am no longer the junior high youth pastor.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I can't do it. And so so it worked out. But that was my first career, my first job in church ministry.
yeah,
It's something that I was highly qualified and something that I was woefully qualified to do.
yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Youth ministry, man. It's how everyone starts. You got to like pay your dues.
Regardless of whether or not you're wired that way,
Yeah,
that's how you start.
yeah.
Yes.
That's just the entry point. So you did the creative side for a long time, and now you've jumped in to the XP. Like, why those are some would look at that and go like, oh, it's totally different worlds, right? Like, creative folks or like that side of the house, right?
Hmm.
Versus the XP, maybe more business side of the house, don't
Hmm.
necessarily like that type of person doesn't possess both or whatever. So like, how did you make that jump, or why did you want to make that jump?
Are you saying executive leaders and creatives are like oil and water? Is that what you're saying,
just
Frank? How dare you?
just wired
I
differently.
just besmirch the good name of
There could be an
creatives.
executive creative person, but still creative, right? I think
Yeah,
they should
yeah,
be
yeah.
executives, but
Hmm.
just a different kind of passion and things they
Yeah.
get joy out of, right? Like that they and their
For
skills.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. For myself, my dad when instilled in me three values when looking for careers. He said, find something that you make a positive impact in the world. If you're building tables, well, everyone needs that's a positive impact. Find something that you are accurately compensated. So don't just go chasing money, but also don't undervalue yourself. accurately compensated, and then also find something that you're continually growing in. Because if you're not growing, you are going to dry up
Hmm.
and become dissatisfied as an employee. And that's going to be the majority of your life. Find something that you can grow into.
Right.
You don't want to be doing the same thing again and again if that doesn't give you passion. And so for myself, there's been a number of milestones where I felt myself, you know what? I'm no longer growing in what I'm doing. I need a new challenge. And for myself, this has been the new challenge.
Yeah.
I knew that if I keep on doing the creative arts pastor, I'm going to shrivel up, which is bad for myself. And then also on the flip side, it's not good for the church. I want to bring my best game to the table, and I need a new challenge to
Yeah.
do that. So that was part of the pivot for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. What's been the most interesting part of becoming an XP?
I um, probably hand on the steering wheel is probably the biggest thing in relationship to staffs. And every LP XP relationship is different. You kind of cut up that pie. The old saying is, what does an XP do? Whatever the LP doesn't want to do,
Yeah.
which is a little bit of truth towards that. But another way to say it, a friend of mine, Rich Birch, says it is LPs serve at the intersection of vision and execution. So you have the vision from the lead pastor, and how are you going to execute it? Which is a great intersection to stand at. It's a busy intersection. Sometimes you get hit and run traffic in that intersection, but the most exciting thing for me is it is always invigorating. There's always a new challenge to how do we accomplish that? How do we get from here to there? How do we get from vision to execution? I think that's probably the most invigorating for me.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
which is it? I'm going to go on a tangent here, which is interesting because when I was looking for LP roles, I started looking when the pandemic hit, and I'd go on the job
E-
sites and I would look for
XP roles?
opportunities. Sorry,
You
XP roles. Yeah,
XP
I
roles.
was
Yeah.
looking for
Okay.
XP.
Yep.
And that's when I started looking, and there weren't any around because there were a lot of LP roles, a lot of lead pastors who were close to retirement, saw COVID hit, and they're like, I'm hanging up my cleats. I'm done. I was going to
Hmm.
retire in three years. You know what? I'm going to retire in 3 months. This is too much for me
Yeah.
for a lot of different reasons. Now, LPs like a challenge like that. They get invigorated by it. So I saw LPs who were towards the end, and they said, you've breathed new, fresh life in me. I'm staying in this game longer. And so it was really interesting to see the dichotomy of how different leaders are wired and whether that challenge invigorated them or kind of put a nail in the coffin. And this
Right.
is this
Right.
is too much. I got to call it quits.
Yeah. XPs are like, oh, it's a whole new world of church happening right now. Let me go see if I can figure it out. Well,
Yeah.
with like church online and
Hmm.
building restrictions and just all the different things that were thrown at them. Yeah, definitely presented a new set of challenges for every
Yeah.
church on the planet.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I know we're not going to talk all about XP stuff, but part of it, I guess, is that you mentioned talking about intern programs, and intern programs in churches are a big deal. I mean, my church here in San Diego, we have interns all the time, especially in the summer. Seems like
Hmm.
summer internships are a big deal. And so, yeah, what's your, let's talk church internship programs. Like, why are they important? How do you do them? Like, what's the point? Like, maybe you start at the beginning for people who may have never done one.
Is
Why
there
should they
another
think
point
about
other than free labor, Ben? I don't
it?
understand
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
How is
That
this a
part we all get.
conversation? That's it. That's all I have to say. That's my hot take. Now I'm leaving.
Volunteers.
But no, but it's fascinating because again, I think I think this is a key. The way to think about it is interns are phenomenal for all organizations. I mean, I know we're talking to churches and
Yeah.
nonprofits, but like if this was Microsoft, whoever on the side of the, I would say you need to do internships, even though you probably have the money, even the top companies that could pay those people. I would still advocate for internships for a number of
Mhm.
reasons. So it's not just a free labor. The biggest one is probably it gives you a leadership pipeline. So whatever your organization is, especially going back to churches, nonprofits, you have your staff and you have your volunteers. How do they make that jump to staff, or how do they even make an intermediate jump, maybe a jump to a volunteer leader? Internships are a great way to do that. It gives you a natural sense of who is the rising leader. You get to see cream rise to the top and to evaluate based upon that and
Mhm.
move towards it. And as you are identifying that leadership pipeline, it gives both parties a chance to try before you buy. And this is critical. I know for myself, when I was in college, I tried, someone encouraged me, try a different internship because you'd much rather do an internship every summer and try that out instead of getting into a career that you really didn't invigorate you
Right,
and motivate
right.
you. So So it gives the intern a chance to try before they buy. Am I really interested in doing vocational ministry? Am I really interested in doing it with this church?
Right.
And on the flip side, for the leaders who are listening, it gives you a chance to try them out before you buy as well. You might be thinking, hey, we want to take the plunge on this person as a staff member. If they have that internship under their belt, then you have a greater degree of confidence that we're going to move from a 10-week internship to a 10-week internship to a 10-year staff position. It really gives you that confidence as a leader. So those are two quick whys, and there's
Yeah.
more, but those are two quick whys.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it totally makes sense. Do you find most internship programs are summer internships?
Yes.
Kind of.
Again, for a couple reasons. For us in the church world, it allows you to maximize some of your ministries that have a peak proficiency. So a lot of ministries will scale down during the summer. One of the key ones that doesn't is your youth ministry. That's their high season. These kids are off during the summer. They have more time. You're going to send them on trips. You're going to go on mission trips. You're going to go to the shore with them. Whatever it is,
Right.
you're going to have more time. So summer is peak for a ministry standpoint, especially when it comes to youth. And then also summer's peak because that's when from a ministry standpoint, it's peak for us, but also for the youth, for the people entering into the internship, if they're college aged, they have that time off.
Right.
So,
They're off.
so
Yeah.
I would say that is an ideal time, but this is a yes and yes, summer is ideal, but don't limit your internships for the summer. So some people think it's summer only. I try to run internships year round. Now you always want to walk before you run. You want to get a great internship started during the summer and then expand it over the year. But I would not limit that perspective in terms of the timeline just upon the summer. But again, like you're saying, it is the key time.
Yeah. Yeah. It totally makes sense. How do you, yeah, what are let's go nuts and bolts. Like, how do you start an internship program and how do you find those interns and how do you know if it's like producing value? Like, right?
Hmm.
Versus just like, oh, I'm hiring some of the kids from church for the summer. They're going to help out. Cool. But, that's just doing it to do it, versus it really being productive or bearing fruit. Right. So, yeah, walk us just through some of the nuts and bolts on how you guys run yours.
Yeah, so the first headline you talked about, why you should do internship, why, reduced cost labor was the big headline there. In terms of the how, the quick headline I'd say is treat it like a job. So
Hmm.
whatever standard that you have for an employee, do the same standard that you would do for an internship, which you just quickly would answer all those questions. So the first question you asked was how do you find these people? Um, I like to find interns from interns. So themselves, you did a great internship here. Who are you going to recruit to replace yourself? How are you going to be an advocate? And how do you find somebody as well? That's one of the first things I give to an internship is find your replacement for the next quarter. It's actually one of their tasks that we look for them to do. Hopefully they're good at that, and hopefully it's beyond replacing yourself, but it's multiplying yourself. Can you find two people through your network that you could replace yourself? So that's the first thing. How do you find them? Through the current internships that you have. I would say that is in addition to all the other regular communication avenues that you use in terms of a church, in terms of your announcements, your bulletin, your social media, whatever it is. But use those people who've gone through the program. And then again, going back to the job perspective, if you're like, okay, how do you get started? Is the first thing, and this is pretty bad because I've seen a lot of internships miss this, is write a basic job description. So what are they coming in to do? How are you setting them up? Do they know what that job description looks like? Um, that's a template that gives them the freedom to foster and flourish during the course of the summer, giving them a job description. Then the last question you asked there was, how do you know if it's successful? What is it? We're investing in them. Again, it's at least our time as leadership. It probably will some finances on the back end. There might be a stipend, there might be an hourly rate, but there is some type of investment from your standpoint, and there's an investment from their standpoint. They're giving up a summer usually to be with you. How do you know it's a win on both sides? Well, going back to the job description, did they accomplish that job description? And if you can say yes and they can say yes, then I think both parties will say this was a wise investment, and this was a win. Coming back to the intern, if it's a win for them, is if they advocate for you. I whatever the product is, Nike, Starbucks, whatever I like, I'm usually going to champion it, right? If your intern is unwilling to champion your internship program or your church afterwards, or doesn't want to recruit their friends, then you need to look under the hood. Why not? What was wrong with the experience that they do not want to encourage it for others? So that's probably like one thing on the back end as you're looking towards the back end internship. Are they excited to tell their friends about this? They're like, no, no, no. I'm going to tell my friends about it, but I'm going to tell them don't come because it's a big waste of their time. How do they respond in terms of encouraging others to participate is something I look for as a leader.
Yeah, I love the point you just made at the very end there about like the interns coming out of the program or even being part of the program and like wanting to tell their friends, like being excited about what they just did. I mean, that to me, I guess is a clear sign of like, hey, this is someone that you might want to come on staff full time. You know, obviously if they've shown the other signs, like they're good at what they do and, you know, their sort of work is bearing fruit and the kid, if it's youth, like the kids dig them, the parents dig them, all those kinds of
Mm-hmm.
things. What other signs do you look for, you know, once somebody's gone through the internship, like, oh, we should consider bringing these people on staff full time?
Great question. I would look towards, again, anything that you would apply towards a potential staff hire, apply towards them. So basic things like, do they show initiative? So I've
Yeah.
had people on the back end, and we didn't have a job, but they were completing their internship, and they said, you know what, this is awesome. I enjoyed this here. I like this here. Um, do you guys have a job here? If so, I would like to apply. And I don't even know what it is. So that then the initiative, right? When you
Right.
interview a potential staff member, did they follow up with you with an email and saying, thank you for taking your time? Did they maybe even send you a card? Did they respect your boundary to say, don't contact us, we'll contact you? Do they do all those things? From the same point, I've had interns who've shown that initiative, and we didn't have a position on the table per se, but we saw their desire, their passion, and we said, you know what, we saw their competency, we saw their chemistry, and then we saw their passion, and because of that, we don't have a position currently, but we need to figure out how to make a position for this
Mm-hmm.
person because we want to retain them. So again,
Right.
if you're listening on the leadership side, and again, most people are probably listening from that side from this conversation, what demonstration of drive and desire and passion do they have? To me, that's a big. I can teach competency down the road, but I can't teach passion. Do they have that? Are they exuding that? That's one thing that I would look at in terms of what's going on. Now, on the flip side, what do the staff think about them as well? They might be excited to work here, but are we excited to work here? You can do that
Right.
very easy by sending something internal without the intern included on that. Just, hey, how would you rank this intern over the summer? How did Frank do? What does it look like? Give us your feedback. Would you be excited to work with them? Because again,
Right.
it's got to be a win-win. And I think that's really helpful as leaders. The higher you get, the more, not oblivious, but the more removed you are from boots on the ground. And so you cannot rely on your own, oh, that guy gave me a high five every time. Well, they were kissing up to you, but what did it look like when they were actually working with the rest of the staff? Is the
Yeah.
staff excited to have them? So a quick poll with staff really helps you identify that as well.
Yeah. Do you usually do internship programs with big groups? Like, I'm not sure what size the church is at or where, you know, but I know you've been at some larger churches in the past.
I
So is it like, oh, there's 10 interns this summer. We're bringing them all in. They're all, you know, youth ministry workers. Like what's it usually look like?
Great question. I would say two things. I would say for the smaller churches, try to always get at least two interns. You might have a church of 100, 150, 200 listening in, and they're like, there are not two high school students or college students in my whole congregation. How am I going to get two interns? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But if possible, get two. First of all, it's going to be a better, speak to the need in the room. It's going to be easier for you to manage because when they run into a problem, who do they go to? Well, they're going to go to each other first. Hey, I forgot
Right.
my login.
Right.
Can
Right.
you share yours with me? Yeah, I can share yours. Or how would you navigate this problem? They're going to have a lot of crosstalk. If you don't have two, well, who has to field all the questions and answer every issue that comes up? It's the manager. So when you get to, you allow them to do that, which is better for you, and it's also better for them because they're not just sitting by themselves at a computer. They got a buddy. They got somebody that they're going to go out to lunch with.
Right.
If you're not available, they're going to get somebody that can sit and work alongside with. So that's the one thing. Try to get at least two,
Yeah.
regardless of your size. And then the other encouragement, you talk about, hey, can you do 10? Can you do 12? How many can you do? I've never been a part, maybe some of your listeners would disagree. I've never been a part of an internship, overseeing it, or overseeing somebody's overseeing the interns. I've never had too many. I've never thought, oh my goodness, we have too. What do we get ourselves into here? We got 5, we got 10, we got 15. Whoa, what do we? I've always seen managers being able to expand their bandwidth to take on those interns and being surprised by that. And on the flip side too, if you're a manager and some of your work it didn't get done, but you were spending more time managing, I will guarantee that your output at the end of the day will be greater because you're managing more interns. And it's not just a party. It's 15 people rocking it in the back room.
Right.
They are still bringing value to the organization. So more people equals more value. Don't be gun shy. And it maybe one of your listeners have a horror story, but I'd say 9 out of 10 times you cannot have enough interns.
Yeah, too
Get
many.
them.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of horror stories when using interns, but hey, that's life. You're
You
hiring
sound,
young
you
folks.
sound, you sound. I know you have it
Yeah.
as well for Tithely. You probably can't talk on the record, but it sounds like you got some
We
wounds
actually
or some
don't.
battle
We don't
scars.
have
No?
we don't have an internship program at Tithely.
Okay.
I've seen lots of interns at my church. It's usually like kind of college ministry, high school ministry, kind of those two groups seem to be where that we bring on quite a few every summer.
So
And they seem great.
let me
I
play.
did it when I was in college. Like I was an intern a couple summers way back in the day. So it's a great experience. Like you get a chance to like really like work in a church and kind of go to staff meetings and just see what it's like. And then, like I did it in college. So we're on campus, right? We're doing, Bible studies and small groups and activities like on campus and kind of living that life. It was amazing. So I'm all for it.
You said you're all for it, but you also said I'm sure there are horror stories. What would you? I have my background in journalism, so I have
Yeah.
interviewing in my blood. I apologize for flipping the roles here for a second, Frank. But
Yeah, it's all good.
what would you say is the biggest? Because I'm intrigued. What would you say the biggest hesitancy or battle scar people have from doing internships that prevents them from jumping in, or maybe they're in it, but maybe prevents them from taking it to the next level and really making it blossom?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak from experience because it's not like I've run a bunch of internship programs myself, but I just can imagine, I've got kids myself, and I was in youth ministry, I was in student ministry. Kids are young and, immature and inexperienced and all that. So you get all of that stuff. So you bring in some high school kids, let's say as interns, working in the junior high program or something like that, and they're just high school kids,
Hmm.
and they're gonna make mistakes, they're gonna and most of the time it's not going to be catastrophic, but I'm sure they can do some dumb things, right? So I think it's like that. And if you don't, I think it's just comfortability. All right, if you have people who are running your internship program, or if it's a smaller church and it's you as the senior pastor who's running the program and all of that, and you have the time to put into these people and give them direction and leadership and guidance and help them, right? I don't know, if they're planning a high school event and they've never done it before, well,
Hmm.
they need to be trained. They need to go to some and see what it looks like and then know how to plan it and all. So it takes effort to do that. That takes away from you doing your kind of daily thing to help these people, but that's part of what it's about, right? It's helping train these next generation folks. So I think if you have the right things in place, you can help make it successful. But if you don't, maybe you just leave more room for kids to be kids. And not that I don't think anybody's doing it maliciously or whatever, but stuff happens.
You said a couple key words that I think are really helpful, especially for an older leader who may be listening. Leadership, mentorship, training, um, really hands on, which is
Yeah,
helpful. Again, I'm Gen X, so age myself, and I remember when I came into the workforce, being supervised and managed by boomers. The expectation was, I'm going to give you a job to do, and you're going to do it.
right.
We're not going to
Yeah,
be friends.
yeah,
I'm not going to train you. I'm not going to mentor you. What is this mentorship you're looking forward to? And it's just, this is what you need to, and I'll give you a year-end evaluation, and we'll touch base once a year.
yeah,
But that was right or wrong, that was the expectation. I came into the workplace that I experienced a lot of leaders passing that down to me. Again, right or
yeah,
wrong. I don't think it's right or wrong, but it's a unique perspective. Now, again, if you're of that mindset and you're trying to oversee a younger generation entering into the workplace, you really need to change your mindset because they are looking for more than a job description. They're looking for leadership, they're looking for training, they're looking for mentorship. And unless you are willing to provide those things and you see
Yeah.
the fruits from that, you truly see the benefits from it. To me, I see the benefits of it. It's not a one-way street. I'm investing in them and they are flourishing and moving the organization forward. Now, if you can lead that way, do it. But if you can't, then don't. Because you're right. It's going to be butting
Well, they
heads, oil and
I
water
mean,
all
that's the
summer
whole
long.
point. That's the point of an internship program, in my view. If you're just hiring, bringing them on part time, not hiring necessarily, but whether it's a free internship or a paid stipend type of thing or whatever, the point is to train these people, right? Is to give them an experience, let them learn, but also be trained because they might find out that they do love it. And if you're like, you're more likely to love that experience if you're looking for the next generation, to serve in full-time ministry. Well, that those interns that are coming in are more likely to love it if they have a great leader that's training them and mentoring them through the process, right? If you're just kind of like, hey, come be an intern, and then it's like, go figure it out. I mean,
Not
you're
going to
not
work.
gonna
Not going to work.
like, I mean, when I did it, I was in college,
Uh-huh.
right? So it was kind of college years, and I did it 2 summers. I mean, it was heavy training. In fact, it was probably more focused on the training aspect of
Hmm.
doing it than just doing the job, right? It was like being trained, and I mean, we're in training and staff meetings, and it was with others, right? It was, I don't remember the exact number, but call it 10 people.
Mhm.
And so, you're doing it all together, and you're going to staff meetings, and you're responsible for things, but you've got the staff people who oversee the ministry, and you're doing it with them. So, it was just the whole thing. And the training was like incredible, So it's a blessing to the interns to get great training, whether they go on to full-time ministry or go somewhere else. That training they get there can really help them, in a lot of ways.
And that you keyed in on something that I think is helpful to unpack. You talked about training and you were involved in conversation. It sounded like you were involved in training and conversations that didn't even necessarily apply to your internship, which I think is vital to grow
Hmm.
somebody. That how are they receiving cross training in the organization, or is it if they're a member of the youth and they're serving on them? Do they ever engage with the pastoral staff or the
Yeah.
kids staff or the creative team? How do you give them that cross? I remember for myself, I was an intern at NBC in Chicago, a lowly intern, and the executive producer would pull me in their early morning phone call when they talked with
Yeah.
New York and the West Coast. Hey, what are the stories that we're going to cover? How are we being aligned? What they were talking about was way above my pay grade. But being
Yeah.
able to listen into that conversation and hear how this leader interacted with other leaders and how they were trying to get a unified message out across their stations that day, I think that's the only thing other than grabbing coffee that I remember from the internship
Yeah.
was
Right.
those phone calls. Now, what value did it bring to the organization? Nothing, but it brought a lot of value to me, and it
Right.
motivated me to be a better internship because I was getting something from it.
Right.
The pithy statement I would use to sum this up is that you're looking for life lessons and accomplished assignments. So
Right.
sometimes you think internships it's all accomplished assignments. Okay, what's the checklist? What's the job description? What are you going to get done? Well, it's that and life lessons. So how are you
Hmm.
peppering in both? If you can pepper in both, it's going to be again it's that win-win. Accomplished
Yeah.
assignments for the organizations, life lessons for the intern. That brings value to both parties. That's going to be a win for both parties.
Yeah. How do you find interns? If you want to do right, maybe you haven't done it, you're church thinking about it, you listen to this podcast, you're like, yeah, I really need that. Like, are you just looking inside your church most of the time when you're starting? Like, oh, I want one for my high school ministry. I think that's probably a really common area, like junior high, high school, middle school, that kind of stuff. Is it
Yeah,
like, let me go find the kids in my church
where are the kids
or
at?
young adults?
You look for a warm body, and then you no. So we've tapped already in terms of the internal, and whatever internal recruitment you use for your volunteers, apply that for interns.
Yeah,
But
just do the
here,
same.
here's the deal. What I would say, and this is, I'd say there's a continuum and there's a spectrum. Um, that I would encourage churches to, in some areas, think outside of where they can look to other interns and where do they need to be aligned with you organizationally and where do they not need to be aligned. So, like for I've been in internships. I've had interns before, and I think by and large, all of them I'm trying to think of my track record for church. I think the one bar that we applied for all interns was follower of Christ, and that
Hmm.
we didn't
Makes
move
sense.
that ball. Hey, this you need to be a follower of Christ. But for us, member of the church, not necessarily. So we had interns that were at another church down the street, and I love my church. And when the internship's done, I'm going to go back to my church.
Right.
And we said, you know what? Do you need to be a member of this church to help us run these summer camps for youth? I don't think so. I think that's so. I think what I'm saying is, I think sometimes we put a bar too high for ourselves, and we put all these requirements on people, and they don't get engaged. I know for myself, like a great internship recruiting potential outside of your church is if you're in a college town, whatever their religious club is, connecting
Hmm.
with them and saying, you got Campus Crusade for Christ, whoever it is, connecting with them and saying, hey, we're a local church and we have a number of internships. We want to make you aware of it. We don't know who you are and you don't know who we are yet, and
Right.
you might attend another church and be faithfully committed there. That's great. Or maybe you're not anywhere yet and you're just kind of a spiritual nomad. Well, we would still love to have you as an intern. So that's like a great, usually untapped resource for churches, those parachurch organizations. Again, college churches, college towns going to colleges, or even again those parachurch organizations. If you have one in your city,
Yeah.
they might have potential interns for you as well. So I would hit them up.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Let's on the internship topic, but maybe a slight tertiary connection, like AI coming into the world. You're an XP, you're thinking about the operation of the church and all the things. And I've had some really interesting conversations with folks like you and church leaders, at the executive level. Like AI is a thing. And it's like maybe it's the next intern. How are you thinking about that as it relates to, doing things, getting stuff done at the church?
I knew you were going to shoehorn in AI into this conversation. I knew I
Yeah,
was waiting for
it's
it.
a
It was in the back of my
it's a
mind.
free intern.
It's a free. You're right. It's funny. I think it's exciting to be a part of. It's the wild wild west. In these conversations, what I find to be really helpful as a practitioner, like I'm not on the outside looking in, telling churches you need to do this. Like I'm
Mhm.
actually in the trenches, trying to maximize my 50-hour work week and saying like, how do I
Right.
best use this? And I can't be chasing ghosts right now, and I can't be chasing theory. What does this actually look like? And I know just like some quick things for myself, like if we're going to go that route, is I know for us, we've been looking at grant writing, and you have two routes. In the past, you had two routes. Now you have three. In the past, it was spend a lot of money to hire somebody to write grants for yourself
Right.
really well,
Right.
or spend a lot of time figuring out how to do it, or now allow AI to write 75% of it, and you come in and you clean it up on the back end. Like that's like,
Mm,
very
great idea.
tangible
Yep.
way to use that. For myself, I got a chance to speak about half a dozen times over the course of the year. Hey, what are some of the message points that I would bring to the table here? It's another tool in my toolbox as a teaching pastor. What does it look like for me to use it? Is the Bible, the Holy Spirit, concordances, friends. AI is a great tool in that toolbox. Now, it's not going to write my whole message for me. And in fact, I'm
Right.
usually displeased with how vanilla and bland it comes out. But it's a great tool to use. So to that end, you putting me on the spot here. How could I use AI
Have
instead
you
of an
guys
intern?
have you done anything at the church yet with it?
Yeah, so those are two examples right there.
Okay,
Grant
the grant
writing
writing
and
thing.
message
Yep.
writing are
Okay.
two quick examples that I've used for myself.
Yeah.
The answer is yes. But again,
Yeah.
since we're talking about it, I'd love to know from you, not theory, but practice. How have you seen churches practice AI and use it in a very tangible manner?
Yeah, I mean, it's a new conversation, but the couple of really practical ones that I heard, I was talking to a church a week or two ago, and they've actually been using AI for the better part of a year, like maybe a year and a half. And so they're using it like all over the place. But one of the big ones is like all their content, like anything
Hmm.
on the content side of the house, right? Like written content, video content, like their blog, their website, their newsletters, their social media, like all that kind of stuff. They've been using AI for, a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And letting it kind of be the creator of a lot of stuff. And then they come in, like you're saying with the grant writing, it's not done without the human, right? It's like but it's a great way to start things. It's a great way to get 80% there, and then you do the extra, parts of it. So
It's
all
it,
content.
Yeah, content, and in particular for myself, find it helpful for policies. So
Yeah.
we have a 46 page staff handbook. It's way too long,
Yeah.
and so I'm running that content there and saying, boil this down, get it
Yeah.
down to from 48 pages down to 8 pages.
Right.
What do you got for me? And so
Yeah.
for me, it does well at that, and also condensing content, which I usually don't want to expand content. I want to condense it, or creating new policies. So we
Yeah.
don't currently have a great ordination process. So okay, I'm going to put in some of our standards as a church. How would you create an ordination process for a
Yeah.
church with these values? What would that look like? Go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So
like,
new
it's
policies
amazing
and
at that
condensing
stuff.
content is great. Yeah.
Totally. It's like, it used to be cool to have the big handbook. Now it's cool to have the really small one, right?
Yeah.
Like,
It's a plaque on our
like,
wall. Read it.
yeah, right. Like nobody read it. So you might as well make it small enough and concise enough to do what it's supposed to do,
Yeah.
but do it very quickly. And
Mhm.
AI is great for those kinds of things. And
Mhm.
and I was like somewhat, tongue in cheek, but also very sincere in that, like, AI shouldn't replace interns, but it can certainly do a lot of these kinds of things that you might have had an intern, or you might have somebody on the communications team like doing, and now they don't have to do this part of the job, right? Like
Mhm.
they can go do maybe the higher level part of the job versus spending time on stuff that's just like super monotonous, super like, making the handbook smaller, right? More concise. Like that's
Mhm.
like, why should a human have to do that when you can use
Why?
AI
Why should
to
even a
do that
computer
way
have to do
faster?
that? Yeah.
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 Yeah. Why should a computer? And then sermon writing is an interesting one. Like I've
Mhm.
talked to pastors about it, and you kind of get, we get, people doing it already and
Mhm.
having a good time with it. And even interesting things like translating your sermon in your voice into
Yep.
another language, right? I've heard
That's
that
key
one a few times.
if you're going to do that, because if not, it just again comes off as vanilla. And I'm sure you've seen like articles like written, and you're like, that was 100% AI. Like I just,
Yeah.
I know it
Yeah.
in my bones because I know the author, or I know the site that it's on, and it doesn't have any of the flavor of that. It just feels very artificial. And
Right.
so what you said is bringing in your back catalog of content to the table, inputting that, and using that to create your voice, super helpful.
Yeah. Or actually taking your sermon that you preached on Sunday
Hmm.
and
Oh yeah,
converting it from English to Spanish or
we
English to French, and just using AI to do it. So it's in your voice, it's your sermon
yep.
going out in another language,
Yep.
right? Like,
For us, another really practical, and I'm sure a lot of your leaders already do this, but used to have somebody about 3 hours once a week taking the message and condensing it to a discussion guide for our
right,
small groups.
right.
Well, that 3 hours is now down to like 30 minutes because of AI.
Totally.
Again, you're running it through there, you're editing it, but that's
Yep.
a great practical application of the technology
Yeah, I
right
love
now,
that. Yeah,
not down the
like,
road right now.
yeah, like message, like small group discussion material, like take the sermon, go listen to it. Like, yeah, 3 hours, like, and you're like laboring over that, whereas AI can do that. And then, yeah, you have a human that's like, okay, is it good? Right? Like,
Hmm.
is it actually good? Did it make sense of things? That kind of stuff. Is anything just weird that's coming out? So, I think that's a great example too. Yeah, no, I mean, and again, tying it back to the conversation around just interns, like these are all things that, humans have to do, but now computers can kind of I tend to like, I feel like it's like a superpower, right? It's like, helps you do things you're already doing, but maybe do it faster or a little bit better or whatever. And then you can go do maybe more higher level things,
Yep.
right? Whatever that might be in your organization, but things that like you'd rather spend your time there than on this thing over here.
And it's a superpower now, but it will become a common function down the road. So in
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
words, this is going to become ubiquitous. And so well, you have a chance of whatever curve you're trying to get ahead of. This allows you to get ahead, but there's going to become a day where everyone's using this and it's no longer superpower. It's a normalized power because
It's
we all
just
have it.
normal.
We can all
Right.
fly. We're all
Yeah.
Superman.
Yeah.
So jump into that. For any of the leaders, if you don't get a sense, Frank and I are gently trying to push you into
Yeah.
this to get involved now.
Check it out. At least play with it. Try it out. Go to ChatGPT, go to Bard. There's a bunch of other third-party ones. Do you have anyone that's not ChatGPT or Bard that you've like
No, those are
playbility really
the
like?
2 I'm playing
Okay.
with the most,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I can't remember the name. There's one that people seem to like. We'll throw it in the show notes. Anyways, and yeah, we've been working on one at Tithely called Sermonly. So it's like sermon writing. It's a little side project that we've been working, but it's like
Nice.
sermon writing with AI. So, I think there's just tons of cool things that uh I mean, even sermon writing, like some
Mhm.
churches, like larger churches usually have extra staff that's helping the pastoral staff write sermons, right? So like the sermon writing team, I mean, even that can get, made more efficient or better using AI.
Yeah.
So lots of applications coming your way. Well, Ben, this has been great, man. Anything when it comes, I guess, circling back to the internship program, any kind of closing words that you'd encourage church leaders with related to intern programs?
Yeah, the last thing I would say is we talked about what the groundwork you need to do beforehand to make it successful, and then what happens during the internship to make it successful. The ball I see getting dropped the most is it ends there. And
Mm,
what I'd encourage you is how do you make it on after the internship is over? How do you still make it successful really quickly and really easy? Is you can write a letter of reference for them.
mm.
You can jump on LinkedIn and take a soundbite from that and write them a recommendation and give them a glowing review that they can use down the road. And then
Yeah,
for myself as well is follow up. I'll put it on my calendar that after 3 months and then 12 months, just follow up with so and so. Give them a call. How are they doing? Especially if they didn't get a job at your church or have moved on from your church or never part of your church. They were part of the church down the road. Following up with them again gives them value, and it's super encouraging. I'll give one last story to like sell internships for anybody still listening. Is that
yeah,
I was at a conference once, and again I was talking on interns and the value of interns. And as I was talking, a gal like was kind of frantically raising her hand. I was talking about how if you invest in interns, interns want to invest back in you.
right.
And I was like, hey, the girl in the back, why don't you stand up? And it was far, I couldn't see her, and she's like, hey, I want to let you know like that's true, and I can say it firsthand because I was an intern at Ben 10 years ago at X, Y, and Z church, and it was just like like an aha moment from like, oh God, like thank you for your goodness, thank you for bringing this first full circle. But
Right.
sometimes you don't see, right? You put your fingerprints on this person as a leader, you train them, you mentor them, you lead them, and then 10 years down the road, man, look what God did in your life. And I had the honor of playing a part in that. That is so exciting. I can't wait to see how God uses you in your next chapter to advance
Yeah.
his kingdom. So you as a leader, when you invest in interns, you have those aha moments when you see them down the road. So that would be my last encouragement for leaders to consider internships. It moves the kingdom forward.
Yeah. Amen. I love that. And that's probably the point, right? That's the whole point of the whole thing is making a big impact, growing God's kingdom, helping people make an impact. So Ben, this has been awesome. Thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Frank.
Where should folks go to check out the church you're at today or to learn more about you?
Yeah, you can go to tlcc.org. I'm at the Life Christian Church here in West Orange, New Jersey. Or if you want to find out, I'm kind of scratch the surface. If you're like, hey, I want to do more of that internships, but I need help, or I need actually, can you have a conversation with my lead pastor? And can you cast vision for them? Go to benstapley.com/coach. I'd love to give you a half an hour free of my time to help consult and see if I'm the best person to help you move that forward at your church.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. All right, man. Well, thanks, Ben. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Frank.
Thanks, guys, for listening today. We'll catch you on another episode of Modern Church Leader next week. See ya.